Have you ever wondered why some women seem to say everything without opening their mouths?
She doesn't flirt openly. She doesn't text paragraphs. She doesn't confess. Yet somehow, when you're near her, you feel that pull, that undercurrent like something invisible tying her attention to you.
Most men miss it. They're too distracted by loud signals, too caught up in chasing words, too busy trying to make something happen. They overlook what she isn't saying, the subtle language of silent interest. And that's why they sabotage themselves. Picture this: you're at a coffee shop. She's across the room. She doesn't come up to you. She doesn't flash some exaggerated smile. She doesn't giggle with her friends pointing in your direction. But when you glance up, her eyes linger half a second too long before darting away. Later, when you pass her table, she shifts slightly, angling her body so her shoulder is open toward you. It's quick, small, forgettable unless you know what to look for. That half-second eye contact wasn't an accident. That shift of posture wasn't random. It's a test, and if you're blind to it, you'll never see the door she just cracked open. The truth is, silent interest is how women protect themselves. They want to show desire without exposing vulnerability. Words can be denied, but glances, proximity, subtle choices of where to stand, how to react, those reveal more truth than any sentence ever could. But here's the harsh part: if you're needy, if you're desperate for validation, you'll miss all of it. You'll either chase her too hard and scare her off, or you'll ignore the subtle cues and convince yourself she doesn't care. Both are equally costly. Imagine a man at a party who keeps cracking jokes, louder and louder, hoping the girl across the room notices him. She does notice she noticed him when he first walked in, but his desperate attempt to earn her gaze drowns out the moment of quiet connection she was offering. Instead of catching her half smile, her stillness, her subtle sideways glance, he's too focused on being noticed. And in that noise, he misses the signal. By the time he finally looks her way, she's talking to someone else, because she sensed he wasn't attuned enough to pick up her silent interest. So how do you read it? Start by slowing down. Stop chasing every loud signal and begin paying attention to the quieter ones. Watch her body language in moments she thinks you aren't watching. If she mirrors your movements, leans in slightly when you talk, or stays longer in your orbit than she needs to, those are breadcrumbs of attraction. If she asks you a small question that doesn't really matter, do you know what time it is while her phone is in her hand? That's not about information. That's about creating connection without risk. But here's the tactic: don't pounce. Silent interest isn't an invitation to overwhelm her. It's an invitation to open the space, test the waters, and respond with calm presence. If she lingers near you, don't suddenly corner her with intensity. Match her subtlety. Ask a small, non-intrusive question. Make light conversation without forcing energy. If she gives short answers but stays close, that's a green light. If she drifts away quickly, it's not rejection, it's recalibration. Your job isn't to chase, it's to notice, respond lightly, and give her room to step further toward you. One mistake men make is mistaking absence for disinterest. A woman who is silently interested may appear distant, distracted, even cold on the surface. But watch closely, she'll reappear near you when she could be anywhere else. That's not an accident.
She may not message you constantly, but when you speak, she listens more carefully than others. This is her version of investment. If you're waiting for bold declarations, you'll miss the quiet consistency. Another trap: over-investing the second you sense interest. Silent attraction isn't an invitation to flood her with texts, compliments, or energy. That's how you smother it. Instead, you hold your center.
You match her investment step for step. If she gives you subtle attention, you give her light attention back. If she escalates with more presence, you meet her there. Always mirror, never chase. This shows you're not starving for her approval, you're tuned in, but you're not owned by her signal. There's a deeper psychological reason this works. Women test for safety and strength at the same time. Safety, because she doesn't want a man who can't read her subtleties and forces her into blunt rejection. Strength, because she wants to see if you're confident enough to stay grounded instead of exploding with need at the first hint of interest. Reading silent attraction is not just about decoding her signals, it's about showing you can handle them with composure. So ask yourself, have you ever been so focused on saying the right thing that you missed the look in her eyes? Have you ever noticed a woman orbiting near you, only to assume it was coincidence? Have you ever blown up her subtle cues by overreacting, chasing too fast? Too soon, tell me below, what's the hardest part for you when trying to read a woman's interest? Do you ignore the signals, or do you overinterpret them? Which mistake feels most familiar? You've probably had this happen. She sits across from you, playing with her glass, not saying much. Her words are ordinary, surface level, maybe even boring, but her foot points toward you, not away. Her laugh is a second too delayed, almost like she's nervous. She touches her hair, not in a big exaggerated way, but in that unconscious fidget that betrays awareness. This is the paradox of silent interest. It hides in plain sight. She won't tell you directly because she wants to see if you can read between the lines. If you can't, she loses attraction because she doesn't want to spell it out. If you can, you're rare. Most men rush to fill silence with noise. They think interest must be pulled out by talking more, performing more, proving more. That's why they get ghosted. They overextend. They confuse silence with danger. But here's the brutal truth. A woman who is genuinely interested doesn't always come forward with words, she comes forward with presence. If you mistake that presence for emptiness, you'll blow it. Let's make it practical. You're walking with her after a date. She slows her pace. You assume she's just tired. Wrong. She slowed down to keep you close. She wanted the moment to stretch, to last longer. If you rush ahead, if you misread her silence as disinterest, you miss the chance. Instead, if you slow too, keep step with her, maybe brush her hand lightly, you create the space where attraction blooms. That's how you respond to silent signals, by attuning, not forcing. Or think of this, she texts you a random meme at 11 p.m, not a long paragraph, not a confession, just a small offering. Most men either ignore it as meaningless or go overboard, flooding her with attention. Both are wrong. The real move matched the level. Light response. Light energy. Keep the door open without rushing in. Silent interest thrives when you create balance. Not too much, not too little. And here's the trap you must avoid, thinking that every subtle sign equals deep attraction. Sometimes, a woman's silence isn't about you at all. She might be polite, she might be bored, she might be testing to see if you'll misinterpret her neutrality as interest. That's why your role isn't to assume, it's to calibrate. Watch for patterns, not isolated signs. One glance could be coincidence, but repeated glances, lingering proximity, small excuses to be near you, that's no accident. Psychologically, here's what's happening. Women communicate value indirectly because it filters men. A man who can't slow down, observe, and feel the subtlety is usually too reactive, too desperate,
too fragile to be trusted. A man who can wait, who can notice, who can mirror without rushing, that man signals strength. She wants to know if you can handle restraint. Silent interest is her way of testing if you have patience, self-control, and awareness. Fail the test, and she withdraws. Pass, and she invests deeper. So what's the strategy when you sense it? First, hold your center. Don't suddenly change your behavior because you think she's into you. Stay consistent, calm, grounded. Second, mirror lightly. If she leans in, you lean in slightly. If she lingers, you linger. If she opens space, you step into it, but never more than halfway. Always let her close the gap. Third, test back. Instead of chasing, withdraw slightly and see if she re-engages. If she does, you've confirmed the signal. If she doesn't, you've saved yourself from chasing a ghost. I'll give you an example. A guy is at work, and his co-worker always seems to hover near his desk. She laughs at his jokes, even the bad ones. She asks questions she doesn't need answers to, but he assumes she's just friendly. Another guy in the same spot notices, mirrors her light banter, then withdraws, stops talking for a few days. Suddenly, she's finding excuses to message him about projects. That's the power of reading silent cues and applying pressure strategically. You don't chase, you let her reveal how much interest is really there. But here's the cost. If you fail, you'll forever be chasing words while missing reality. You'll fall for women who tell you what you want to hear but never show it in presence. And you'll overlook women who were silently waiting for you to see them, because you were too distracted by surface-level noise. Silent attraction requires that you slow down, read the unspoken, and trust patterns over performances. Have you ever noticed a woman orbiting near you again and again, but dismissed it as coincidence? Have you ever blown up a small signal into a fantasy, only to realize she wasn't actually invested? Have you tested her interest by pulling back? Or do you always rush in the second you feel a spark? Be honest. Which mistake do you catch yourself making the most, ignoring subtle attraction or overreacting to it? Share your story below. Think about the last time you were around a woman you wanted, and she gave you nothing obvious. No flirting, no direct words, no invitation. Yet, something in her silence made you restless. You couldn't explain it, but it kept you thinking about her afterward. That's the raw tension women create when they use silence as communication. It's not absence, it's a mirror. It forces you to either crumble under uncertainty or step into clarity. And most men crumble. They either overcompensate, flooding her with validation, or they retreat completely, convincing themselves she's cold. Both reactions prove the same thing: they can't hold their ground. Silent interest is subtle, but it's also strategic. Women know instinctively that if they make things too easy, they lose leverage. Attraction for them is not just about desire, it's about psychology. When she withholds direct words but leaves hints, she's measuring your ability to read the unsaid, to handle the ambiguity without losing composure. Men who can't handle ambiguity chase. Men who can handle ambiguity attract. That's the brutal divide. Here's how it looks in practice. She doesn't text you for 2 days, then suddenly likes one of your posts. That's not random. That's her way of reminding you she's watching without investing directly. If you respond by chasing, firing off multiple texts, asking why she disappeared, giving her your frustration, you hand her control. If instead you do nothing, or you respond lightly with humor days later, you flip the script. You show her that her silence doesn't destabilize you. That's what makes her want more. The truth is, most women never say, "I'm testing you." They just withdraw slightly, give you fragments, and wait. They want to see if you'll hold your masculine frame or collapse.
This is why men who constantly demand reassurance, "Do you like me? Are you interested?" lose. She doesn't want to hand you security. She wants to see if you already have it. Silent interest, then, is not just attraction, it's trial by fire. Let me give you a story. A guy meets a woman at a dinner. She gives him light conversation, but nothing direct. He senses something, but instead of pressing, he keeps his calm, engages briefly, then moves on to talk with others. Later, she finds her way back into his orbit, asking him an unnecessary question about the menu. That's her re-engagement. He responds lightly, then turns his attention back to the group. By the end of the night, she's the one suggesting they exchange numbers. Why? Because he didn't collapse into overinvestment. He noticed her silent interest, responded, then gave her space to escalate. Now compare that to another man who misreads the same situation. He feels her glance and takes it as a signal to pour his energy into her. He spends the rest of the night chasing, complimenting, making himself available. By the end, she's turned cold because the power dynamic flipped. He lost the subtle dance of silence and turned it into noise. And noise kills tension. The tactical rule here is simple when you sense silent interest. Don't reward it with desperation. Reward it with presence. Stay grounded. Hold your energy. Mirror lightly. Then withdraw to create a vacuum. If it's real interest, she will fill that vacuum. If it's fake or weak, she won't. That's your filter. You don't chase validation, you create space and watch who steps in. The cost of not learning this is huge. You'll keep chasing words while ignoring the reality beneath them. You'll waste years on women who string you along with silence while never truly investing. Or worse, you'll destroy genuine interest by smothering it too soon. Silent attraction is a game of patience and pattern recognition. If you don't train yourself to see it, you'll keep losing ground you never realized you had. Here's the deeper layer. Women respect men who can handle restraint. Anyone can talk. Anyone can chase. Very few can stay calm in uncertainty. Very few can sense interest without rushing to own it. That's why women are drawn to the man who doesn't need constant proof. He's the one who reads her silence and simply waits. That waiting, that composure, is rare power. So let me ask you, have you ever ruined a connection because you reacted too quickly to a subtle signal? Have you ever ignored silent attraction until it disappeared? Do you trust yourself to wait? Or do you panic when she doesn't give you direct reassurance? Tell me below, which part of silent attraction do you struggle with the most, noticing it, or holding yourself steady once you do? Here's what most men never realize. Silence is not empty. It's a pressure chamber. When a woman withholds words but stays close, when she glances but doesn't speak, when she lingers in your orbit instead of moving away, she is building tension. And tension is the core of attraction. Break it too soon and you kill it. Hold it and it ignites. Think of the man who can't handle silence. He feels a woman's quiet gaze, and immediately he fills the space with chatter. He over-explains his job, his hobbies, his childhood pets, anything to avoid the discomfort of the unspoken. She listens, nods politely, but the spark dies. Why? Because instead of standing strong in the space she created, he collapsed into noise. Contrast that with the man who notices her quiet attention and simply lets the silence breathe. Maybe he leans back, smirks, holds eye contact a second longer. That moment of restraint flips the script. She feels her own desire expand because he didn't rush to dissolve the tension. The truth is, women communicate through micro signals, not declarations, a slight change in tone when she says your name, a pause before answering your question, a subtle touch on your arm when she laughs. These are not accidents, they are controlled leaks of attraction. And the test is simple. Can you read them without breaking the frame? Can you accept her signals without needing to pounce? Because the moment you rush, you shift from mystery to predictability. Here's where men sabotage themselves. They confuse subtlety with insecurity. A woman who gives you silent signals isn't unsure she's selective. She's seeing if you're one of the few who notices. If you need everything handed to you in neon lights, you disqualify yourself. Attraction at its highest level is never loud. It's layered, hidden, reserved for the man who can wait. Picture this, you're sitting at a bar. She walks past you twice, brushing slightly closer each time. The average guy doesn't notice. Or worse, he notices and blurts something clumsy out of fear. The grounded man, the man who understands silent interest, doesn't flinch. He catches the pattern, waits until the third time, then makes a calm remark as if it was the most natural thing in the world. You keep circling back here. Don't tell me this is coincidence. Delivered with a half smile, not accusation. Suddenly, the space opens and she steps in willingly because he read her without rushing her. Tactically, here's your move. Silence is never answered with desperation. It's answered with calibration. If she lingers, you linger lightly. If she withdraws, you don't chase, you let her return. If she sends a vague message late at night, you don't overanalyze. You mirror the tone, keep it short, and let her curiosity build. This is restraint as strategy. It's not passivity, it's controlled power. Why does this work? Because men who can't control themselves can't be trusted. If you explode with need at the smallest cue, what will you do when things get hard? She tests you with silence because it's the fastest way to expose whether you are stable or fragile. And most men reveal their fragility instantly, begging for clarity, demanding attention, or retreating into sulking silence of their own. But the man who doesn't break, the man who stays calm, he becomes magnetic because she realizes she can't shake his center. The danger is when you confuse silence with rejection. Not every quiet moment is a signal. That's why you watch for patterns. One glance means nothing. Repeated glances, paired with proximity, paired with unnecessary contact, that's attraction wrapped in silence. Your job isn't to invent signals. Your job is to confirm through consistency. That's the difference between awareness and fantasy. Let me make it sharp. If she's silently interested, you'll feel it in her investment of presence. If she isn't, you'll feel nothing but absence. Don't build castles on coincidence. Don't turn neutrality into a love story. Test it. Pull back. See if she re-engages. If she does, it's real. If she doesn't, walk away. Silence is clarity if you're willing to see it. So ask yourself, do you panic when a woman goes quiet? Or do you hold the line? Do you create pressure by standing still? Or do you kill it by rushing to fill the space? Have you trained yourself to see the patterns? Or are you still hoping for words to spell everything out for you? Drop your story below what's one time you realized too late that her silence was actually interest. Here's the hardest truth you need to swallow. Silent interest isn't meant to make you comfortable. It's designed to unsettle you. A woman doesn't always want to hand you certainty. She wants to see what you do with uncertainty. Do you chase it? Do you crumble, or do you stand still, calm in the storm? Because in that silence, she sees the real you, not the version you polish with words. Most men never learn this because they're addicted to reassurance. They want answers, labels, constant signs that everything is okay. But attraction doesn't grow in safety alone. It grows in tension, in the unsaid, in the quiet gap where she lingers, watching if you'll break. That's why the men who get it don't need to force anything. They lean into silence and let it work for them. They understand that words can lie, but presence never does. Think about it. If she truly wasn't interested, she'd vanish. She wouldn't linger. She wouldn't hover. She wouldn't find excuses to stay in your orbit. Silence is not absence. Silence is investment without exposure. She gives you pieces of her attention, tiny offerings, waiting to see if you're strong enough to recognize them without needing to beg for more. So what do you do with this knowledge? You stop over-explaining. You stop over-chasing. You stop confusing noise with progress. The tactical move is restraint. You notice. You mirror lightly. And then you create space. Let her prove her own desire by stepping further in. If she doesn't, you've lost nothing. If she does, you've gained everything without sacrificing your frame. Here's a simple test the next time you sense her silent interest. Don't rush to confirm it. Hold still. See if she reappears. If she circles back. If she invests again. If she lingers longer, you've passed the test. And if she doesn't, you've filtered out someone who was never truly invested. That's how you win either way. Silent attraction isn't about decoding every flicker of attention. It's about mastering yourself in the face of uncertainty. The cost of failing this lesson is brutal. You'll keep chasing words while missing actions. You'll waste years on women who never truly wanted you. And you'll overlook the ones who did because you were too impatient to see what silence meant. But the man who gets it, he's dangerous in the best way. Because he doesn't need to demand. He doesn't need to beg. He doesn't need to move first. He simply waits. Knowing his presence alone is enough to draw truth out of her. And here's where it ends. She didn't break you by being quiet. She revealed whether you were strong enough to hear what silence was already saying. That's the real test. It's not about her, it's about your ability to stand still, read the unspoken, and remain unshaken. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.